There's a version of success that we buy into. It's this picture of what it means to be the perfect businesswoman. She's ambitious, polished, strategic, she performs at a high level, she pushes herself, she's not easily rattled, and she's strong, but she's never a bitch, and she's confident, but not intimidating, and she's kind, but she's not a pushover. She's assertive, but she doesn't get angry, and she's powerful, but at the same time likable. She's bold, but she doesn't polarize, and she's feminine, but not too feminine. And she's caring, but not overly emotional. That version of the perfect businesswoman, she's not real. And while we're busy trying to emulate her or parts of her, we can lose sight of what truly makes the most impact and success in our businesses, and that is being 100% ourselves. Your business, your rules. Grow a business that works for you. This is the HerBusiness Podcast. Welcome to the HerBusiness Podcast. I'm Susie Daphnis. I'm your host and I'm the CEO at HerBusiness. And today we're talking about the perfect businesswoman. We're talking about the internal and external expectations we have of ourselves to perform in a certain way, to meet a traditional definition of success, and to emulate this idealized version of what a female business owner should be like. Then we're going to break down that lie and we're going to talk about where your true strength lies and how to take your business future into your own hands and start playing more by your own rules. So I want you to think about the very first time you realized that there was a quote unquote right way to do things in business. What moment was it for you that you realized that maybe you didn't fit that perfect businesswoman persona? Now, I remember when I started my business and I stepped into the networking space. I remember going to an event, wearing an outfit that I thought read as business, and my hair was down and natural in its curly and maybe a bit frizzy state. And I'm sure I wore shoes that hurt my feet. And I quickly realized as I looked around that I was breaking a sacred dress code, a uniform almost. There were blazers and heels and sleek hair and minimal but polished makeup and pretty jewelry. And it was a uniform that said, I'm serious, I belong here, I'm successful, I have my shit together. And my outfit didn't say that. And I felt kind of awkward, like my clothes did not fit me right, like I was in the wrong place. Now, what I wore was obviously not expensive because I didn't have the money to have anything expensive. And I didn't look like I was going to impress anybody or have anybody think, ooh, look at her, she's making it. And I know I'm not alone in that experience. I know you may have had a moment like that too. And from situations like these, and I don't mean just clothing, I'll say more about that, but what can happen is we don't feel like we belong and we begin to notice ways that we don't hold up to the impossible standard that's out there. And so that time I realized it wasn't just how I dressed, but also how I spoke about my business, or rather didn't speak about my business. Instead, I stumbled to introduce myself, nervous as anything. And I was shy, and this was all very new to me. And I felt like I was getting it all wrong. I thought that maybe I was not cut out for this. My introverted nature was screaming. But for years, I tried to play along. You know, I went to the events, I bought the suits, I bought the right shoes, and I tried to get as close as I could to what I thought I should look like as a business owner. And so I became part of the show because I thought I had to look the part before I earned the right to be the part, to be taken seriously. I, would straighten the Greek curly hair. Actually, I still straighten my hair because the curls drive me crazy. I wore professional-looking blazers and suits that I didn't love. I bought the heels that were just the right amount of feminine, but still, serious businesswoman CEO. And it wasn't just the look, I would fake confidence and put my hand out for a handshake. I nodded along as people shared their elevator pitches for me, with me. I stayed in conversations way more than I needed to so as to not appear rude or uninterested when all I wanted to do was run away. So I acted the part, but I still felt out of step because that version of professional businesswoman did not feel like me. It felt like I was performing someone else's idea of success. And I began to question, whose rules are these anyway? Who said this is the only way to do business? Where do these ideas even come from? Well, we know where they come from. We'll talk about that later. But somewhere along the way, many of us were handed a script for how to show up in business. A script that tells us what success looks like, how we should behave, what sort of products and services we should have, what we should want, what pace we should move at. who we need to be in order to fit in and to belong. And some of us have taken it on without questioning. I know I did for a long time. So today, let's start questioning. And I also want to look at the opposite, which is, falling into isolation because we don't want to play the game. And that can be bad for our business as well. It doesn't support us. So let's start with this old idea that a woman business owner has to have a level of togetherness about her and drive. Honestly, I'd taken that on in my early years, probably more than I realised. I wanted year-on-year growth, more revenue every year, more profit, a bigger team, larger office space, a mover and shaker in the making. I like the idea of being seen as capable and strong and in control. And you know what? Part of me still does. But being capable, strong and in control doesn't have to equate to losing ourselves in the process. I'm not naturally hard. I'm tender. I feel things very deeply. I cry when I'm overwhelmed by joy and by sadness, and when I'm stressed. And I think about other people a lot. I take things to heart. And for a long time, I felt that part of me was a liability in business, something that I had to keep in check if I wanted to be taken seriously. And I actually had a great conversation about this condition of being sensitive with the phenomenal Erica Webb on episode 331 of the show. And I'll link to it later in our show notes. I'll give you the details. And I think that's what a lot of people are told, that if you want to be successful, you need to be a little tougher. And that softness doesn't belong in boardrooms or business meetings or business decisions. And that's just not true. Some of the strongest women I know are the ones that lead with heart, that lead with empathy, who bring their full selves, all the crazy aspects of themselves to business, not just the curated, polished version, not just the bit that has it all together. And I've learned that we do not have to squeeze ourselves into someone else's version of success. We get to build a version that fits who we truly are. Now, that can take a little getting there, but again, stay with me. Now, I don't want to insinuate that all aspects of traditional image of success are hurtful or wrong. There are definitely parts of that stereotype that have something to offer. The idea that women can be ambitious and focused and financially independent, that we can lead and make bold moves and take up space, that is powerful. There's something energizing about setting big goals, building something of your own, showing up with intention. Those parts, they can serve us if they're coming from a place of alignment, not from pressure. When it starts to hurt us is when it becomes performative, when we feel like we have to constantly be on, when success becomes about ticking boxes and keeping up appearances instead of building a business that actually feels good to be in. It hurts us when we silence our doubts because vulnerability doesn't fit the image we want to present. Someone said to me last week, Susie, your superpower is your vulnerability. And I kind of shrunk a little bit. I'm like, no, why can't it be something else that's my superpower? So when we don't ask for help, because successful women do it on their own, which is totally not true, by the way. In fact, the opposite is true. Because successful women ask for help. Successful men ask for help. Every successful person asks for help. They get mentoring, they get support, they get coaching, they have sounding boards for their ideas. Okay? This traditional stereotype does not leave much room for softness or nuance or seasons of slow and rest and pause. And the cost of chasing a version of perfect is often burnout, disconnection, not loving what we do, second-guessing our own instincts, working with people that we don't love working with, having products and services that do not light us up, staying in business relationships that perhaps served you once and no longer do. I don't know what the situation is for you, but I'm sure you can appreciate there might be things that are not in alignment with you. The thing is that we can be strong and we can be soft at the same time. We can be strategic and spacious. We can be the kind of leader who's clear on what matters and wise enough to leave the rest behind. So, what are the external influences that have handed this role description to us of what it looks like to be a perfect businesswoman? Because they sure as heck don't start with us. They're layered on quietly over time through culture, through media, through school, even the workplaces we came from before we started our own businesses and we were, dutifully working for someone else. We see it in what's celebrated, the fast growth stories in the media, the women who do it all, the award winners, those who, are showing up in our social channels, those with sleek branding and a polished look. right? We've shown a specific image of what success looks like. And I've been that woman, who showed up in the fast growth stories, who was in the media, who had the polished look, who won awards. I've been all that, but it's not all of who I am. I'll say more about that later. And social media, it really amplifies a false sense of success even further. It makes us think, oh, that's how I'm supposed to show up. That's the pace I need to keep. That's what a successful woman looks like. And because it's everywhere, it starts to feel like it's actually fact, even when it's not right for us. And then there's family and culture, maybe even religion, all these inherited beliefs about what a good businesswoman or a good leader should be. Kind, humble, don't ask for too much, don't rock the boat, be loving, caring all the time. And the problem is when we're shaped by these outside voices, we can stop trusting our own voice. We start building a business to match someone else's expectations, not our own values. We second guess our decisions. We start feeling behind. And that creates internal expectations on top of the external ones. Even if no one is explicitly telling you to do more, be more, achieve more, maybe saying that script internally is what's getting you down. Maybe you tell yourself things like, you should be further along. You should have figured this out by now. Gosh, you've been at this for years. What is wrong with you? Or you know what? You've been trying to make this business successful for so long. Do you even have what it takes? Or maybe you found yourself saying, don't show weakness, don't slow down, don't drop the ball, everyone's relying on you right now. I mean, that was my internal dialogue for years, and I still have to tell it to shut up, even today. Now, you don't have to hold everything together. You don't have to look composed when everything feels messy beneath the surface. You don't have to be, over every single detail all the time without missing a beat. So cut yourself some slack. While the external pressures might be the origin of these expectations, often it's what we're doing internally that has us, all tight and unhappy. And it's hard work to unlearn that inner pressure. I know I'm still working on myself around that. We just have to let ourselves be human, not perfect, not invincible, but still worthy of success and respect and rest. For a long time, I felt like I had to put certain parts of myself in a box because of that internal pressure. Keep them tucked away, out of sight. I can be very direct and very fiery. And at times I felt like, cool your jets, Susie. Soften your tone. I'd filter my opinions to keep the peace with all sides and not make any enemies. I worried about being too emotional at times, too open at others, too intuitive at others, not structured enough. Like all those parts of me made me less professional. I thought I had to be more polished, more decisive, less unsure, less tender. Even the way I communicated, whether that was, in a meeting or giving a presentation, I would over-prepare, over-explain, make sure everything felt airtight so I wouldn't get caught out, because I thought if I showed any vulnerability or said that I didn't know, I'd lose credibility. But the truth is that armor didn't help me connect with people. It made me feel isolated, like I was playing a role instead of leading from who I really am. And over time, I learned that the more I brought me into my business, in every part of my business, the softness, the care, the honesty, the fieriness, the real voice, the more impact I had. That's what builds trust. That's what makes space for real leadership. So I don't want you to hide any parts of yourself anymore. They're not a liability. They're a strength. And I don't want to hide parts of me anymore, because all our parts have a role to play. And I have a rule that I like to follow, and I've told this to anyone who's ever been on my marketing team. I don't like putting the word should in any of our messaging, because the word should is someone else's voice. And honestly, I hate being told what to do. Always have, probably always will. I push back on that energy in life and in business, and I think a lot of women feel the same. It's why I don't build messaging that tells people what they should feel or should do or should be. I want you to hear your inner voice first, not impose a rigid path or shame those who follow their own. The problem with shoulds is that they disconnect us from our own wisdom. We start making choices to please, to conform, to tick the box, not because they're aligned with our particular path. And so I hate it when I hear things like, you should scale, you should niche down, you should be on social media, you should want more, you should have an online course or a membership or a mastermind, or whatever it is. It's never ending, but it's just the word should. It's like, according to who? And it robs us of the chance to ask the real question, which is, what do you want? What matters to you? How do you want your business to look? What sort of marketing do you want to do? How do you want to run your team? And I've been hearing from women more than ever before that they feel pressure to continue down a path that they've created, even if it no longer feels right. And I understand that. I've been there. If you have had success in your business, it's easy to keep carrying on. You think you should. This is working. I'm earning money. I have clients. I have products and services that work. I should just keep carrying on. But success, can get away from us, and we are not aligned with what we're doing. Something can work. It can bring in revenue, recognition, feel so familiar, you can do it with your eyes closed, but still be out of step from what you really want. And here's the thing, you're allowed to grow, you're allowed to change. I know it's not easy, but this is your permission slip. Your values are allowed to shift, your needs. And if you don't let your business evolve with you, it's easy to get stuck, feeling successful or looking successful on the outside, but disconnected on the inside. Sticking around is also a should. There's no perfect version of your business. It doesn't exist. So I encourage you to let go of that perfect businesswoman pressure as well and listen to what you want instead. You are allowed to grow out of the version of yourself that got you to where you are now, knowing that, maybe someone different has to take the reins to take you forward. So even if she was successful, even if people admired her, that version was necessary to get you to where you are now. But she's not the whole story. So if something feels off or heavy or like you're playing a role, that's just a signal, a sign that something deeper is asking to come through. You can evolve. In fact, you're meant to evolve. And when you do, when you stop chasing perfect and start choosing real, everything opens up. More freedom, more connection, more ease, more happiness. Because the perfect businesswoman is BS. But you, as you really are, with your tenderness and your quirks and your pace and your fieriness and your way of leading, that's where the power is. So let's let the old rules go. I know, it's scary. I would love for you to trust yourself enough to grow beyond what's familiar. That's where the good stuff lives. That is the process I am in right now of just becoming more and more me. And you know what? It can be scary. But here's what's possible. Inside of Her Business, we have a community of women business owners who are redesigning their businesses to align with the woman they are today, while building freedom, while having more fulfillment, while building constant and consistent profitability and sustainability. And my commitment is to maintaining a safe environment where you can show up as you, where you can share that your last promotion bombed, that you really botched up that last onboarding process with a new hire and now they've quit, that you're clueless when it comes to crafting successful offers, or that you feel really overwhelmed right now or stressed. None of that takes away from who you are or the contribution you can make and the value you bring. And when you have a good, compassionate community of women around you, there is a ripple effect. Because when one businesswoman shows up for herself as not the perfect version, not the one who's ticking every box, it gives the rest of us the courage to do the same. It says, you can build this your way. You can be soft and strong. You don't have to hide who you are to succeed. Let's find a way that is your rules, the way that you want to do business. And it changes how you lead. It changes how you show up. And your clients feel it. They're not just buying a service. They're connecting with someone who gets them. Your community feels it because authenticity is magnetic. It's rare. And it creates safety. And most importantly, you feel it. So if you're not yet part of Her Business, I'd love for you to apply and come and join us and discover just how being part of a community of other women business owners on their journey, how that feels. And we have women in different industries who have their own definition of success. They are leaving behind the shoulds and the expectations and defining exactly what they want from their businesses and their lives. They're making change and they're doing it in a safe environment where they have the sounding board and the support and the mentorship. And they're making things happen. And you can apply to join right now over at HerBusinessNetwork.com. There's an application form. It takes about 72 hours for us to get back to you. And then once you're in, you get instant access to all your membership benefits and all the support that you need to keep growing a business that is truly yours, that is truly you. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. We're not done yet, but what I want to say is that I'm going to put anything I've referenced here in a summary of what I've said over at business.com/338. That's herbusiness.com/338. And of course, if you want to join other women business owners inside of Her Business, you can apply to join us over at HerBusinessNetwork.com. And I'll put that link in the show notes as well. And I want to end with a story about authenticity. So in this podcast and everything else we do at Her Business, I have started showing up more honestly in our messaging, not just the polished strategic version, especially over the last 18 months, but the real voice behind the brand. And I stopped trying to sound like an textbook expert. I let go of a lot of overly curated presentations and copy, and I let myself speak the way I actually speak, with warmth, with empathy, with swear words sometimes, with honesty, and sometimes really bad grammar. And it doesn't matter. It's transformed me in so many ways. And if you need any encouragement to do the same, let me tell you that I've been hearing from so many women about the effect that this has had. People want your voice. They want your authenticity. They want you to live by your rules. They want your vulnerability. And I received a message just the other day from a listener and someone who I worked with for a number of years. And I think it's a great note to end on. Now, this was a personal message direct to my inbox, but I know she won't mind me sharing it with you. And her name is Stella Dizzotti. She's an Australian voiceover artist and an actor, and she recently released her very first children's book. And she said this. She said, "Hey, Susie, I've just finished listening to a few of the Her Business podcasts. Episodes 325 and 327 especially, I've noticed how different you are and the change in format." She said, "Please take this as a compliment. This is the real Susie. I can hear in your voice and sense that you've arrived at a place in your life that's truly how you want to be seen and known for on your terms. It's lovely to hear and witness this. I think you understand what I mean. I get it. Thank you." And, little prayer hands. And it made me cry. So thank you, Stella. It's nice to have reflected back what my journey has been. And I want this journey for you too. If this is what you want, if you want to be more truly you, to have your voice be heard, to truly be seen as who you are and be able to lead your business from that space, I'm here to support you in doing that. Now, I want to say something else about the lovely Stella. She recently released, as I said, her book. It's called The Golden Gift. It's part 1 of a 3-part trilogy, and it's a junior fiction, middle grade fantasy that young readers will love. There's magical portals and fantastical worlds and friendship stories. And the books come about because of her bedtime stories that she often tells, and it shares Stella's love and awe of children's carefree, anything is possible attitude and the infinite imagination to create whatever they wish, right? We've been talking today about creating anything you wish in your business, and this book fosters that idea of you can be anyone, you can have anything with children. So I encourage you to buy a copy, make a great Christmas gift for someone. You can order your copy over at Amazon or head over to stelladizzotti.com, and I'll put a link to that in the show notes. The book, once again, is called The Golden Gift, and it's part 1 of a 3-part trilogy. So thank you, Stella, again, and go ahead and grab a copy of the book on Amazon or over on Stella's website. I'm going to put the link in case you didn't catch the URL. I'm going to put it over at herbusiness.com///338. Alrighty. If you enjoyed this episode, I would love it if you would leave a rating or review on Apple Podcasts, or just send me a message directly on Instagram or on LinkedIn. Now, on LinkedIn, I'm Susie Daphnis, and on Instagram, you'll find us at HerBusiness. Once again, show notes are at herbusiness.com/338, and we'll put a summary of today's episode. We'll put a link to Stella's book and any other resources that we've mentioned, including the 2 episodes that Stella referenced when she wrote to me. Now, if you're new to the show, subscribe wherever you're listening. Join us in the next episode for more inspiring stories and lessons from successful female entrepreneurs. And if anything was sparked for you by this episode, you can reach out to me at podcast@herbusiness.com. See you next week right here on the Her Business Podcast. Hey, remember to hit follow or subscribe if you're new to the show. I'll see you next week. Bye for now.